Hello to everyone. This is Gunther Steiner. This is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back to the show. We're very excited. We're about 50 minutes from the Sakir Grand Prix in Bahrain for Formula One. But we are also excited because we have just been joined by a badass race car driver in IndyCar currently, Jack Harvey. Jack, welcome back to Speed City.
Good morning, guys.
Morning. Hey, we got to clear something else up from, before we went to break there. We've related the issue that, George Russell has big feet. John Massengill has big feet. Jack, how big are your feet? Do you have feet?
US 10, so
that's
not on the same level.
But we're about the same size. Would that make me as fast as you?
Well, actually, I love this analogy that we were building on earlier. We're practically the same. We're both from the UK.
Yeah.
We live really close. We still support our hometown teams, which I was trying to show you on my jacket.
See, Lincoln City. Yeah.
So, I mean, we're practically two peas in the same pod, mate.
So, do you think if I bumped into the Shanks, I could maybe get a drive at some point? Or
I think you should float the idea at him. Just be like, look, we're from the same place. We do the same things. It's pretty much just a given that you're going to be good in this car.
Yeah.
Same size feet. Yeah.
You're basically the same person.
Almost.
Yes.
Jack, what have you been up to? You've got some time off since the season. What have you been doing?
Honestly, right after St. Pete's, I think it was such a whirlwind year. I think everybody, not just me, but the team, I think everyone just took like a quick breather, 2-week breather. I traveled just, a really tiny bit, went to visit my girlfriend's brother in Florida. Came back, and then honestly, it's from when I got back just before Thanksgiving, it's just been a ramp of activity. I think that's when people are getting ready for that big run up to Christmas, so then you can enjoy Christmas. We actually tested Sebring in the early part of January, so then suddenly that breather that everyone had was great, but it's that re-energized state of mind to then suddenly go and get after it again, because the season actually starts kind of early next year, but it finished late this year. So the actual off season, in many ways, is a lot more condensed than normal, a lot busier than normal. Probably to the delight of my girlfriend, just so I'm not like around the house like poking around at stuff. So I think it's been a nice off season so far.
Well, Jack, I saw on your Twitter that you're baking a lot around the house, and you got TikTok going. You're like the rest of the world. We're all stuck in our houses.
The pandemic pounds.
Yes, exactly. I'm actually trying to avoid the pounds. I've still been working out, and it's funny because I had a few people like, "Oh, I didn't realize we followed a baking account." And I was like, "Well, I mean, I don't know what you think I'm doing in a car, right now, because our season's finished. There's no testing. And actually, I don't know if people, maybe it's just because everyone is stuck at home, so a bit more on their phone, but I've probably been baking for the last 2 years. It's just a bit of a hobby of mine, just kind of away from the stress of racing, really.
What's your signature dish, Jack?
Signature dish. My carrot cake is good. I make these, they're just like a s'mores cookie, but I actually use proper Cadbury's in it instead of Hershey's. Yeah, that's good. My banana bread actually is okay. I get that asked a few times.
So I got it now. So Jack's banana bread with a little Harvey's Bristol cream.
Ooh. I need to get some of that out here.
Can you get that in Texas?
I got some for my mum the other day. You can find it here.
You might have to just send me that, because I don't know where I'd find it.
Hey, listen, Jack, I'm sure you can relate. We want to talk to you about what's going on in Formula One, obviously, but I mean, we are half an hour away from a fellow Brit taking what is the biggest step for any young driver. You've had, a pretty meteoric rise yourself of late, but for George Russell, this is amplified, unbelievably. What's your thoughts on what's about to ensue?
Oh, honestly, I was just so happy for George, because I think he has performed so strongly all year, and I hate to say it, outperformed the car, pretty regularly, I think. So when you see, Lewis getting COVID, and obviously just wish him a speedy recovery and is in the best health possible. To me, if it was my decision, I wouldn't have waited as long to even have announced George. It would have been a bit more of a no-brainer to me, because he's got nothing to lose by going and taking this opportunity. I think we all can agree there's no pressure on him, because if he wins, it'd just be like mind blowing. But to be so close to Valtteri in qualifying, if he gets on the podium, if he doesn't get on the podium, it's almost a great scenario to be in. Although it's difficult to learn on the fly with as little prep as he had, what comes with that is I think everyone's expectations also are not low. I mean, they're actually very high because of how talented he is. But really, everyone's excited just to see what he can do in a car that I think all think is probably a bit more competitive, a lot more competitive than what he's had. And probably for the talented driver that he is, deserves to be in, because even in go-karting, when we were all in the UK, I mean, George always had some flair about him, and he's just still doing what he's always done. And I thought his qualifying lap was mega, and I saw the interviews after that. Even in qualifying, he was still catching the wrong buttons and things like that. So to me, if you gave him that car in an off season to prepare with it, to get comfy with his feet as well, I think he would push to win a championship, and for sure would push to win races. There's no doubt about it. So I think
where did you race excited. Him?
I was always actually a few years ahead of George. So if I was in, junior class, he was in the cadet class. And as I moved into a senior, he moved into the category I was in. But actually, I was actually in between him and his older brother, Benji. So yeah, it was always it was like a sandwich of the Russells actually. But I mean, he's so talented. I think even last year you saw him really perform, and he's performing so strongly now as well. So yeah, I think George is he's just a star, mate. There's no doubt about it.
Jack, you walked right up to the line. We're going to push you over this line with this question. There's a lot of discussion online, as the armchair quarterbacks will have. Seeing George perform this well, does this somehow dampen how great Lewis is as a driver?
No. My take on that, if I was Valtteri, I would be doing anything I could to make sure I beat George this weekend. I don't think it takes away anything from Lewis, because I mean, to be that consistently great is, it's not really an argument point. I mean, the argument point always is he's in the best car. Okay, I think we can all agree on that. And just to say he's got to beat his teammate, I mean, that to me is an incredible achievement, that he consistently beats all his teammates. He beat Fernando when he was in the McLaren at the same time with him. And every teammate he's had, he's pretty much beaten. I know that Nico Rosberg did, but in truth, I think Lewis that year had a lot of other things going on. I think that's a skill on its own. So as I look at the Mercedes team, the only person, if I was a driver there, if I was Lewis, I wouldn't be, concerned if it diminishes anything for him. But if I was Valtteri, I would definitely be making sure that at any cost I'd be beating him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that everybody loves to talk about that on Twitter and on all the social media, but there's no doubt. I mean, watching the consistency of Lewis Hamilton over the years, it's just astounding. I mean, just in the last few years, watching uber closely him in Formula One, he just never makes a mistake at the wrong time. If he makes a mistake, it's on Friday, and it's probably not even a mistake. It's him testing and pushing the car. But well, Jack, I want to ask you about your IndyCar career, because you guys at Shank Meyer Racing have just started to step it up every year, and now you guys are full bore in IndyCar. Talk about your career, especially the changes lately.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, everything at Meyer-Shank Racing has been going really, really well. We started in our first Indy 500 together, sorry. In 2017, it was the only race we did, and that was kind of the catalyst to be able to, try and create a program. The first two seasons, we did 6 races. In 2018, 2019, we did 10. And you could see the progress and momentum, that we were carrying. At the end of that year, we were very lucky with AutoNation and SiriusXM, that together they allowed our program to expand into being full-time. And something that came up a few times this year was people, would send me messages like, oh, so bummed that your first time full season, is now with, restricted schedule and COVID. And I was like, guys, it's still way more racing than I've ever done. So, cup half full always in that moment. So I think it was a nice way for all of us to look at the year. Maybe it wasn't full time, like we thought it was going to be, pre-COVID, but actually it was still more than we had done in any other season. And I think that positivity was what allowed us to, continue to grow, to work hard and fight for good results, and ultimately continue to progress throughout the season. I think it's fair to say we had some bad luck, and certainly from our side, perhaps a little bit more than some of the other of our competition and our competitors. That being said, I think all year really, minus Texas, was just a really difficult race, and in truth, a difficult season opener. When you've never been there. I think we had pace everywhere, and I think if you ask me truthfully, where did I think our speed was this year? I think it was, somewhere between probably 4th and 8th, and little step to try and find, I think, to compete with, Will Power, Joseph, Scott Dixon, of course. But we hope with just a bit more experience that we can do that, and certainly the belief is that we can do that. So, heading into 21, we just like to keep building on the good season that we had with some improvements, so that hopefully we can, push just a little bit harder in all areas.
Jack, but watching you this season, though, I mean, obviously the consistency, or at least the opportunities, it's a bit like Connor Daly. The minute you guys get more opportunities, you start to show more. But is it purely that, or do you also feel as a driver you've stepped up? Because I've watched you since you've arrived in the States, and there's no question I think you're driving at the top of your game right now. But is it because of that consistency, or is it you feel like you've stepped up as well?
I mean, probably both, mate. I mean, it'd be hard to just say it's one or the other, I think, and to suddenly just turn around and go, oh, it's just because I got more. I think it's really just a balance of both. I mean, the thing that I noticed looking back when we were doing the part-time, we'd miss, 2-3 races. And that took away a little bit of that flow, and the consistency of being in the car, and things just kind of being a habit. But more so than that, I think it where it stopped me doing that, it also gave other people the opportunity to do that. So then the gaps just increased. So I think what was nice this year was if we went to a track and we had something to work on at the next weekend, we just immediately jumped straight onto it. It was never a case of like, okay, well, let's get back up to speed. Let's just see how the first practice session goes and then evaluate from there. It was very just on it in that sense from the get-go. Texas for sure difficult because I mean that was probably the first race where I felt like a total rookie again. No practice, no nothing. But really after that, I think the improvements the team were making, for sure the improvements I was making, but I think at the crux of all of it was a belief that the team, I think, believed that they could achieve what they're achieving now in IndyCar, and also me believing that given the opportunity, I also could achieve, the results that we're getting. And I think the hope is that we just build and grow together, and hopefully at the end of halfway through the end of next year, we're signing an extension, for a longer program together.
Hey Jack, have you got another couple of minutes? We got to get a break in. Can you stick with us for just a couple of minutes?
Sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, we need to go to a break, and when we come back, we'll have more with Jack Harvey. Listen to Speed City live from Austin, Texas. Back after these messages.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
Thank you, Max Verstappen, for bringing us back, man. I'm looking forward to that. George Russell. Harvey? Where'd I get that? George Russell and Max Verstappen battling it out. But we do have Jack Harvey on the line with us. And
it's not Jack Russell then.
I know. I was waiting for that. And
couldn't resist it. Sorry.
That's low-hanging fruit, that is.
Well, Jack, I want to ask you about Grosjean. And I know I saw on your Twitter that you were watching Formula One when that happened. I've got to ask you what was going through your mind.
Honestly, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I've never seen yes, when you go back and look at, old races and stuff, you see accidents like that, but it's not something you really associate with, the modern era. And, you're watching the start, and the first angle you get of it is suddenly just like a ball of fire down the back of the screen. And it's not until, they show a different angle. And I was just when I saw him get out of the car, I think I breathed, an incredible sigh of relief that he got out, he was walking, but then actually the ramifications, the implications, and what that crash really let you ponder after, was intense for sure. And I think the halo saved his life. The way that he went, the car front on went through the barrier, I think created that, separation. I think I know Alpine Star made the suit that he wears, but I think it was great that the safety standards on suit this year were improved. And I think in that particular moment, obviously, we're all grateful, for that, because I think they went from having, 10 seconds to 20 as, fire retardant. So I think that was great, but I think it caught everybody so off guard, because I was listening earlier, and I'm not sure if I would agree that IndyCar is exactly more dangerous than Formula One. And I think that when you see those races, I think all motorsport it is dangerous. I've seen some horrendous crashes in sports car racing. I've seen them in IndyCar, and now I can say I've seen it in Formula One. So I don't know if I would say one is particularly worse than the others. I think ovals do add in an element of high speed, high risk.
Anytime you strap yourself to a rocket, yeah.
But just seeing the thing that really concerned me, and I guess I hadn't really seen that before, was the way the car. I mean, I know it was a higher speed crash, but seeing the way the car just split in two, you see that often, and I think people forget that these cars are actually designed to disperse in that way, to try and disperse the energy and the impact, on G-force and whatnot. But the angle the car went in got stuck in the barrier. I think, in my personal opinion, like Armco barriers need to be a thing of the past. Like that metal barrier like that, is the safer barrier. I think is a good step forward and whatnot. But I mean, it was pretty eye opening, to the fact that somehow I think we all got caught in this thing that Formula One is fast and it's the premier, but it's almost like dangerous, and it's just not. And like you say, you strap yourself into something that's essentially a rocket ship, and it happens. And I think hearing all the interviews that Romain has done after, are incredible. I saw that maybe he's cooling the idea on IndyCar, which totally respects his decision. Wait and see what happens there. But I think the number one thing we all felt was relief, but also then still recognizing, without taking away any purity of the sport, that safety could always be improved, and we will always welcome a safety gain.
Jack, I want to ask you your driver's opinion. You've seen probably Daniel Ricciardo coming out pretty strongly against all the coverage that was given, especially during the race, right after they figured out that Romain was going to be okay. Obviously, Formula One played those clips over and over, and Daniel Ricciardo said, we shouldn't be doing that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with him. I think I know they said they only play it because they knew the driver was okay and going to be okay, but I also don't think that's really a good enough, not excuse, but good enough reason to show that, because they are distressful scenes, and people don't want to see it. I mean, I don't want to see it. Frankly, I live in a world where I see it often, and one of the drivers on the track, I listened to the radio, but the other drivers are like, we just saw a ball of flame, like, what's going on? Is it okay? And I think if people want to see a replay, they're normally pretty resourceful if you want to see it. The first thing that people do, they go straight to social media, they type it in, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. And in that moment, I'd have no problem with letting people find it, on their own. And, in that moment, he's got family all around the world, don't know what's going on. Yes, maybe know that he's okay, but they don't know if there's any other thing. I think adrenaline that moment kicks in, and he might have jumped straight out of the car and then had problems like after. So I think that relentless showing of it is highly insensitive to him, to his family, and to all the people in the world who, in that moment, are just wanting him to be safe. They don't need to see the relentless crash of a loved one who, for too long was fighting literally for his life.
Right.
Jack, I can't agree with you more. I've done motor racing TV for 25 years now, and I was not happy because of simple things like when you see a driver get out like that and you can see he had burns, but you don't know. I mean, there's so much adrenaline involved in that execution. He could have had a broken back for all we know, because you are superhuman in that moment because of your life being on the line. And when I heard that it was 53 Gs, you don't know internally what's going on. He might be physically able to jump over a barrier, but it could be weeks before the actual truth of his physicality is known. And so because of all those reasons, and that was what was going through my mind, which is great, he's out, but is he internally damaged in any way? I'm glad to say it looks as though no, but I felt at the time that it was too much because they didn't know. They just did not know what his situation was.
I totally agree. I think we all breathed relief when we saw him get out, because you realize that he wasn't sat in a ball of fire no longer. But then immediately it's like, okay, well, let's just get him to the hospital and get him checked out. And if 24 hours after it came out that he was okay, even silly things like no smoke in his lungs or anything like that, and then they were like, here's a replay of the crash. If you want to see it, no problem, go ahead. And I was watching it on TV, same as everybody else. I was having people, my family members texting me about it, like, "Oh my God, we don't know what we'd do if it was you." And it's that relentless showing of it also allows everybody else to look at it and ponder, think about their loved ones. So we're throwing all of our concern and support to Romain, but then everyone else in the racing community is probably also getting messages, reminding the drivers, please be safe. I'm sure, all the F1 teams, the Lara, IndyCar, were looking at that saying, we probably need to find a way to keep innovating, safety in race cars. But I thought I personally I don't think there's a need to show that.
I totally get it. And I really love your take. That's fantastic. And, when Ricardo said it, I was thinking, okay, we want to see it, but what you're saying, the relentless over and over, if people want to see it, they can find it. That's absolutely right.
I mean, honestly, before they showed it again, I wanted to get a different take on what had happened. I put it into my Twitter search and it popped up, like the how instant these things can be. But then I saw it once and that was enough for me. I didn't need to see it again. And I think sometimes it's a tough one because as a fan, I feel like we're all entitled to some information, but when it comes to someone's health, I feel like our sense of entitlement to what's gone on is secondary to that person's health. And I think that's where people then get it wrong, believe we should know more than what we do. Because to me, if we didn't hear anything, for 24 hours, you'd be terrified. But it's also that person's privilege and entitlement to know that they're safe first and foremost, and then it be known to everybody after. And I wish that was the take, because it's not like clipped the barrier and carried on. I mean, that was as scary a crash with huge implications as I've seen in Formula One, probably 10 years, maybe longer.
Yeah.
And Jack, I've been at the 500 and this, there's a protocol there where we've seen some horrific accidents. And of course, as a reporter, you head back to the medical center where they go and check you out. It's par for the course. And then if everything's okay, you come out of the medical center and you talk to the media. Now, having worked for Sky Live on the 500, they're constantly, we're coming to you for an update. And it's like, no, you can't come to me for an update. I don't have one. And whatever I say will be speculation. And if it's a Brit, they're going to be watching at home, and I'm not willing to go and say what's happening or even speculate. So until I get you or whoever it might be that has gone off track, then I'm not speaking. And I think there's a responsibility of the broadcasters that needs to be, and analyzed here, because you are looking at an investigation side at that point. Anything after that impact, you are then showing pictures of what is going to be investigated for weeks to come. And so then it becomes too much speculation, you know?
I think to me that the moment when I really realized they knew that they were playing it too often is when they had to make a comment that, well, we're only playing this because we know he's okay. And I'm like, look, if you've got to the point where you felt the need to then tell people that, you know you've gone too far.
Yeah.
You know? And I think I just wish that in that way, I think people always look to America as if, you know, Europe's so far ahead in so many ways. And this particular thing, I think they're very far behind. You know, I think for the drivers, for the teams to have that moment to actually establish both things okay, because it might not be. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but I actually thought there were some legal things in America as well that you can't disclose medical information unless it's the person and or the doctor
Giving
doing
Yeah,
that.
no,
So
I think you're right.
I
think that's true to some degree.
I don't know. I feel like there's something more than just, you can't just tweet, you know, someone else's problems. And I think that should go to, you know, broadcasting them either until you actually know where he's at. And
I thought NASCAR did a good job at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, so did I, actually. Yeah. But again, you know, it goes back to the fact that, you know, motorsport is dangerous, you know, and you hate to see it. You never want to see it. Everybody loves what they do, you know, but that is sadly the reality of what we all have to do. And again, as soon as we knew he was okay, it becomes a conversation, obviously. We talk about it, but the thing you talk about is, oh my God, thank God he's okay.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Jack Harvey, we thank you so much for coming on. You really
They haven't got his prediction yet.
Well, that's true. We want to get what do you think on the race today? How's George going to do? Bottas and the rest?
I think Bottas will win. I think on the clean side of the grid at the start, I think will make a difference. I think Verstappen's going to be feisty, bit tasty maybe. I think
if you're right, we won't show the AutoNation commercial.
Okay. So my podium prediction: I think Bottas to win, Verstappen second, George third.
Okay.
Like it.
Well, Jack, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me.
We wish you the best of luck, and
welcome.
Yeah, we'll get you back on the show soon.
Hey, let him plug. Where can we find you?
Yeah, what's your social and all that?
Where to look you up?
Oh, mate, you can find me on all social media, from TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. My hashtag's the same everywhere. My username is Jack_Harvey42.
Thanks,
Come
Jack.
and check out some baking with me.
We'll come and bake with you. I'll bring the Harvey's Bristol cream.
Nice. Good. All right, guys, have a good one.
Thanks, Jack. We appreciate it.
See you, fellas.
All right, guys. We are going to go to break. We appreciate it, Jack. That was awesome.
Brilliant.
All right, thanks for calling in, Jack, and thanks everybody for tuning in. And we'll be back after a quick break.